Hey friends, welcome to Woman Owned Wallet, the podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Dare, a serial entrepreneur who has already made all of the money mistakes, so you don't have to. Now I'm working on my money mindset, expanding my companies, and having open conversations with women around a subject that shouldn't be so taboo, money. My company, Woman Owned Wallet, and I are determined to help you foster a more positive relationship with your wallet and help you create a life that makes you say, wow. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Woman Owned Wallet, the podcast. Amanda here. I'm so excited. I can't even tell you guys. I have Ellie here with me. She is just one of the lights in my life. And I don't have very many lights that come, with also like financial advice because she has so much and she's just been such an important part of my journey. I'll tell you guys a little bit about it, but just thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Ellie. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. And we really learned a lot of this together. So
I feel like you've always had it more together than me.
I don't know about that. It's giving me more credit than I think I deserve, but I'll
carry
take
it so well. So well. I mean, I know I have a couple of years on you and I'm just like, no, this bitch gets it. She can help me out for sure. And you've always had a air of confidence around carrying yourself and around discussing like finances and everything that I've just always looked up to. So I'm excited.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I want to talk a little bit about how we met each other. I don't remember the very first moment. I don't know if you do, but I do remember some of our first moments together.
Yeah, I think I remember most of our first moments together. I believe that I reached out to you while I was still working at Enterprise Core, which helped entrepreneurs. I'd been in your store and I was like, this girl is super cool and I want to meet her. So I was like, hey, I'm Ellie. I help startups. What do you want to do? I wasn't really you already had a business, but we were trying to make sure that we were helping more women and small business owners. And so I think I just shot you a cold email.
Love those cold emails. Look, it blossomed to this beautiful friendship. So, hey, that's even better.
One time I did go to your store in St. Matthews and you were there, but that was not when we became friends. And I just wanted to see the back. Because I followed you on Instagram. You wanted
the tour of the entire studio that we had at the mall.
Yes.
I gave people that tour and I was like, here's this one room of 6 sewing machines. I never knew what to say. And people would be like, oh, wow, look at this. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, you like it. Okay, cool. We're vibing. You
literally made the clothes that were in the store.
Oh yeah, that is cool, I guess.
In the back of the store at the mall. At an old school mall. It was the most amazing thing ever. Most stores that you walk into, it's not like, hey, there's women in the back literally sewing your clothes right now.
Hey, there's ethical production practices here, shocking at the mall. I guess you're right. I kind of forget, when you're so close to things, you're like, no, it's totally normal that I made the dress I'm wearing, I make my clothes. So
you made the dress I'm wearing too.
I know. I was like, ooh, you're wearing new black. Right as you walked in, we both knew it. I can spot it from far away.
You added 3 inches to this for me because I'm stupid tall and I'm still longer than most of the people in this particular one.
Well, I'm shorter than most of them. So together we balance it out, Those 3 inches I took off of mine, I put onto yours. And that's what sisterhood is, just sharing. But yeah, I was thinking, so I wanted to tell you, I don't know if you know this, but today is the 7-year anniversary of the new Black.
Really? No, I didn't realize that.
I'm so excited.
That's 7. Amazing.
That's a long time. So when do I leave startup phase and go into not startup phase?
You have. Yeah. You're a functioning small business owner that has employees.
I just feel like I'm always in that.
Well, that's because then you went and started another business. So you are in startup phase with wow.
Oh, yeah. How many businesses can you start at once, Amanda? Just chill out. No, I feel like that startup phase, I was always I guess I'm still starting up because I am still figuring it out. You know what I mean? And I guess I still kind of feel in that as well.
I think that most small business owners feel that way. And there's probably different seasons of businesses. And so this might still feel like the infant season, but you're at least a toddler now. Like
totally. I'm in second grade.
Yeah.
I figured it out. 7-year-olds are in second grade.
Okay. And
I'm
then
in
you'll go through
school.
like another phase, as it continues to grow and scale and things of that nature. But like, I think all small business owners all feel that way. We were doing our small business taxes yesterday, and we still felt that way. And it was just like, we've done this for many years in a row now. And it's just like, oh my gosh, taxes all the time.
Always.
Yeah.
I was just telling somebody else that I just finished my 2020 taxes.
Ooh.
Because I was ghosted by a CPA and like there was all this issue. We had to find a new one, and then they had to correct all the bookkeeping because it was not like the way that they needed it to be. So it was very expensive. And I think worth it because now I feel very confident about my financials and that my taxes, I got the biggest like return I've ever gotten, which was really great too. Because my husband just bought a car and we need a driveway because my yard is a swamp. So I'm going to use that on a concrete pad.
Nice.
To house my husband's sports car that I've been trying to get him to buy for a decade. And he finally did it. And it's so pretty. And I'm so excited.
It's adult goals, right?
I know, right? I was like, wow, we have a house. We're trying for a baby. We got a fancy ass car.
And now we need a driveway.
I have some profit now. Like, what the hell? Yeah. And now I need a driveway. Goals. I was looking at carports for a long time the other day. I was like, yep, should have bought a house that had a garage. Wasn't that cool?
Your house is as cute as it can be.
It's so cute. But you realize what you want in your second house after you have your first house. It's all good. But yeah, so we were like talking, I think because of that cold email. And then I remember you coming into the store and I remember meeting at Starbucks. And I remember I'm terrified I was terrified to show people my financials then. And I was like, trying to get together something to show this like cool girl who cold emailed me to meet at Starbucks and discuss it. And you told me like how much my business was like worth, like quote unquote worth. And I was like, oh my God. That's such a big number. Like I was so excited. And it was just one of those things that gave me this like boost of confidence that I just hadn't really received in other ways, especially around my financials. So that was just such a big moment for me that you probably didn't even realize.
No, I didn't. That's nice to hear. But I do remember us having coffee or talking and you being really, really scared to share everything that you'd been through. And especially the personal debt that you took on, trying to make it work and feeling almost like you were alone in some of those decisions. And that's just not true. Like lots of people make those kinds of decisions, hustling and trying to make it work.
It was like I hadn't found my entrepreneur like friend group yet. I haven't found those biz wifeys like I have now. And things were not normalized for me in the same way that they are today. So yeah, like the personal debt that I had to take on was like on credit cards because I couldn't get a bank, to give me a loan. So I was just like, I'm going to find every single way to make this happen that's possible. And the majority of the time was struggling through really high interest credit cards that I just couldn't get above, couldn't get out of. And what you and I realized is that if I didn't have that debt and I didn't have those interest payments, that I would have been profitable.
Yes.
I'm like, well, shit.
When I realized how much you had paid off that year.
It was like $90,000 one year.
It was impressive amount that you'd paid off and you weren't making progress. And it was because it was in credit cards.
Absolutely. When I figured that number out, I was like, oh my God.
But I think that fear keeps a lot of people from even like looking or taking the time to solve that number because it's just like, it's scary back there. And like you had been aggressively trying to get it together, but it was like just putting it in a spreadsheet and like absorbing what had happened and where it was and how much progress you actually got to feel good about yourself. You didn't even necessarily realize that you'd paid off so much. And it was just like, girl, you've got this. If you can pay off that much in 1 year, we can figure this out.
If I can pay off 90 grand of debt in 1 year, I think I can handle a loan that's over 30 years for 100 or whatever.
Well, and our financial system doesn't make it easy, right? Like people can pay their rent and can't get a mortgage. And it's like, that's so not cool. And so you struggled to get the paperwork that you needed to get the loan, But that didn't make any sense because you clearly could make the payments.
Mm-hmm.
And so that battle is just like a frustrating battle. And you almost need an advocate. Everybody does, to mentally help you get through that.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that I'm like remembering now is like I was going through, I think, the Small Business Development Center, and you had connected me with someone who might know a bank that would actually take it on, because we've proven that I can pay off debt. We've proven that I would have been profitable. Like we could prove that the debt was the issue. And if we could remove that issue and lower those payments, we would free up cash flow and would make so much more sense and all that. So you got me connected, and the banker like had a meeting, and there was an SBDC like representative, Small Business Development Center representative. And I was so terrified of that. I had such like anxiety around that. And it was one of those times where I was like, no, it's not going to happen because it's never happened before. Like I forgot what was possible. And then it was something like not even a few months later, because these processes could take a long time. And this was pre-pandemic. You reached out and you're like, hey, like he said you guys were like almost done. And I thought it was just completely over. And it like restarted that exciting, like, oh, they didn't say no. We just didn't finish. Like they hadn't actually said no, which I thought in my brain that they did, and I had already given up. And just having you be like, hey, do you know, like I talked to him the other day and he said you guys were like really close to finishing. And I was like, oh my God, I thought it was like dead in the water. So like, this is great. So you like reinvigorated that. You made me feel amazing about how like my business being worth literally anything. You could have said a penny and I would have been like, amazing. Like I made something out of nothing and it's worth a penny. This is great. And then when the pandemic like did hit, I still was just in the trenches of how do I navigate this? And I was terrified to fill out the paperwork. And literally Ellie sat on Zoom with me and like metaphorically held my hand through the entire process and was like, this is how you fill out this paper. And it just took away the fear that I had and helped me so much. And like from that, I got the funding that I needed to keep my business open and to open WOW. So like you're kind of the most influential person in my business finances ever.
I don't know if that's true, because what's funny is like I don't have a finance background, or I was not a Small Business Development Center representative. And I'd helped a lot of people fill out that COVID small business paperwork. But I think it's more about like small business owners banding together to help each other, because we sat there and did it for my husband's video production company and some of his friends' video production companies. And so I was like, okay, I feel like I've been through this a couple times. I can help other people figure this out. And I actually helped some people fill out the unemployment paperwork too. It was like,
you helped me with that too, but that I never got the PUA, but like I got a letter saying I got it, just never came through.
But it was we were in a crisis, and it was like, this paperwork is incredibly hard. And by the way, if you have any IDL, it took me like an hour and a half to figure out how to make a payment. So you can contact me because I've figured it out now.
I need that next.
Yeah. Because the government does not make any of this easy.
No, they don't. I think just though, because you were like an outside person who was willing to sit there with me, and maybe it's not about the finance background, but it's about the openness and willingness to fully understand that. And as someone who literally thought they were losing 5 years of my business at the time, like I was so just fearful. I just had a lot of fear. There was so much uncertainty, as everyone knows. And I mean, I just didn't know. And I think having that hand holding, like, maybe it was just another moment for you, but it was like one of those moments that changed my life.
Yeah. Well, and early on, Brad and I were lucky to have some pretty good mentor entrepreneurial people in our life. And they weren't necessarily like massive entrepreneurs. They had some rental property or here and there, but we had gotten some basic financial education. And my parents had pretty much only taught me like, don't spend more than what you make. And so luckily that is more than some people get, right? Like I didn't have credit card debt and I didn't have student debt. So that is a place of privilege.
Yeah. Most of the people I talk to, like they come in and they're like, I had to learn about credit card debt.
Yeah.
I had to learn about those student loans, and we had to dig ourselves out before. But even starting in that with that basic information,
yeah,
it's a beautiful privilege to have had. And like,
I'm jealous for sure.
Yeah. And so like coming out of school, having played volleyball and not having school debt, I had a little like $7,000 in debt because I decided to go to Paris, right? Like 18 years old, I made some poor decisions, but it was totally worth it.
Absolutely.
No one told you that loan got interest while you were in school.
Right.
Because those financial educators really didn't help very much. But anyways.
Yeah. Is that the subsidized or unsubsidized?
I don't know.
I forget the difference, but one is that it has interest through college and one doesn't.
So I went to Paris and I got that. And that was the only little piece of debt that I had. I got a credit card to learn how to get a credit score so that we could rent an apartment and things like that. Like I got a small Discover $500 credit card. It wasn't coming from my parents. They taught me not to spend more than what I have, but they didn't teach me anything else. We luckily found someone who had taught us about having irregular income. And so I had a 1099 job right out of school. And so having, quote unquote, irregular income, someone like when I was like 21 years old told us that you always pay yourself the same amount and it's slightly less than what you expect to make. And that whatever is above that becomes your slump fund. And so, for example, if you plan to make $4,000 a month, every month you pay yourself $3,000 a month, and that $1,000 goes for the month that you only make $2,000. And so it was very basic, but it is kind of how Brett and I operated the video production company and my 1099 and some other things early on was just like trying to have enough to cover the month that you didn't have money. And that in itself kind of set us up on like that, I guess, path of a little bit more information. Does that,
Yeah, because I learned that last year. So
yeah.
I was 31 years old when I not necessarily learned it. I think I've learned it before, but I wasn't in a place where I could make that happen. And so I finally stuck to that plan last year, and it has totally changed how I feel about my holiday months versus January. As a retail store owner, of course, my January is going to be a lot less than my December. And especially owning a gift shop. Yeah, it's going to happen. But it's just like, I didn't take into consideration. So before, I don't even know if I told you this, but before this year, I took all of that Q4 time to save January, February, and March months of rent and utilities, like insurance and everything as well. And I set them fully aside in separate accounts. And I just looked at them and every time money came in, I was adding to them. And the longer that I was adding to them, the better that I felt, because I knew for the first time, one of my only goals was to not take new debt, you know what I mean, in Q1, because that's when I've gotten myself in trouble before, was that I had to take new debt in Q1 in order to survive. And I didn't take enough time to prepare myself for that lull. And like what you're saying with irregular income, you launch or you lull.
Yeah, it's feast and famine.
Yeah. Or even it's just really consistency. If you're hoping to set your future self up for a better situation, if something is, if you did make less money that month or some situation happened, you got sick or something, just anything pops up, then you have that available in order to take care of your future self. So now I think of that as my self-care is I'm taking care of my future self. I'm setting myself up for success in a way that I never was able to before. And I never fully committed to before.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think what was interesting was this slump fund was different than an emergency fund. You built your emergency fund off of your budget. And so this was all personal finance. But as you found out pretty quickly, that immediately can apply to business finance. And it was just this really basic concept that someone taught me right out of college that I feel really aided in our ability to make it work. And no one here knows that I got married at 23 years old. So I was only graduated from college for a year. And there has only been maybe a year in our 8 years of marriage that one of us wasn't self-employed. Like at some point in like we had 1 year that we both had normal W-2 jobs or maybe 2 years, but the rest of the time
Girl, me too.
Yeah. Either I was self-employed or he was self-employed. And then
there's just me on my side, but yeah.
And then there was a couple of years that we were both self-employed. And so that you just had to learn that basic principle basically allowed us to live those years of both being self-employed.
Yeah. So I want to go through that a little bit. Like at 23, you guys are getting married. Do you guys already own businesses or like a business? Like how does the business get started, and explain the business a little bit too?
Yeah. So no, I got a degree in entrepreneurship with the great idea of What the Crepe, which was a crepe stand. And I knew that wasn't going to be something I immediately pursued, and really didn't have a solid plan of exactly what I was going to do out of college. Brad is much older than I am. He actually worked in ministry at the time, and so he wasn't making big bucks. But I had an opportunity to get involved with a technology startup. So I got to watch a small business and be a part of a small business when I worked at a bakery in college and right out post-college. But my first big girl job, as you might say, was in a technology startup that I kind of fell into. That taught me a lot, but it was extremely entrepreneurial, but it also gave me the ability to have an income. It was a 1099 at first, but it eventually developed into a W-2 employment.
When they hired you like as a 1099 employee, like as a freelancer or as a subcontractor, as you guys might have heard of that, the 1099, like you have to pay your own taxes. So were you equipped like with that knowledge, or did you spend it all and then like have to figure it out? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't think I saved enough. No, I think we were that first year, a little caught off guard by our taxes. And maybe that first mistake is why we were able to figure it out after that. Because like, I believe we owed $4,000 or $5,000. And at that point in time, that amount of money sounded astronomical. And like, we figured it out and it was okay, but we did not have it set aside. That was like a big mistake.
But you learned it early.
I was warned. Like I was told to set money aside.
But you did not heed the warning.
So I was like...
Or not enough.
Or didn't really figure it all out, right? There was a lot there. So like luckily I was still on my parents' health insurance at that point. Until I got the W-2 job. I got to have some mistakes and failures in the world of freelancing that were safe.
Yeah, you still had a cushion.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people
learn those early though.
Yeah, but again, that's like just like an extreme place of privilege to have learned that.
Yeah, and to have that safety net and to be able to like call upon it as you need it.
Yeah, yeah, and so I mean, Brad had a W-2 job at the church. And so he was able to like balance us out, and we're not talking lots of money. Like he made like $30-something thousand a year, but it helped balance us out.
So then after you became a W-2 employee, like what happened after that? Did you stick with that company a very long time?
Yeah. So I was at Space Tango for, I think it almost...
What a fun name.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name.
It was almost 4 years in total, but that had a lot of different variations of working for the Kentucky Science Technology Corporation, doing multiple jobs within Kentucky Space. And we did microgravity research. Like I fell into like a very cool job. Did I know anything about space or space technology? Not one bit. Did I really know how to run a company? Nope. But I had some people who like believed that young people can figure it out. And those people gave us a lot of freedom. It was me and the engineer, and they gave us a lot of freedom with constructive guidance. And so I wasn't really in charge of Space Tango's money alone. And that allowed me to have like a CPA and then a bookkeeper that I was working through managing Space Tango's money, which was millions. And it's not like it was real large amounts of money, not like millions and millions, but like anywhere from several $100,000 to a couple million at a time. And so getting that experience of being a person that was in charge of finance and operations, but without being the person that made the final call, because there was a parent company that had a CPA to make sure I wasn't screwing everything up.
Again, you learned within, a safer environment.
it's not a normal startup story
No.
because we had this like parent company that helped us start. And so all that support and initial funding was coming from another entity that had people who could mentor us. And that mentorship, those mentors are still a part of my life. Like Chris Kimmel and Terry Samuel are godsends. They're wonderful human beings. Rick Johnson, like they were there and just believed that young people could figure it out. And when I say young people, like again, 23, 24, and 25, like no experience and should not be putting stuff in the International Space Station. But that's what we did. We put stuff on the International Space Station. So
I feel like it's so rare to hear young people can figure it out. That's like shocking and amazing to me that was part of the conversation at all. Like, even if it wasn't said exactly like that, it's like the mentality of that is so rare. And I think it's beautiful. And like, yeah, they can.
I would say
they're scrappy.
It was leaving there and heading into the world of Chamber of Commerce and quasi-government and literal government. And
now you guys know why I think Ellie is so fancy. Listen to these job titles. I was like a store manager.
Every job that I had that was in government, quasi-government, or chamber was all about entrepreneurship and innovation and helping small businesses. But when you go into from like the true startup environment with these mentors who believe that you are totally capable of figuring it out at 22 to 25, and then you head into this world that's like, what are you doing here, little girl?
Right.
It was a stark change.
I bet.
But that foundation of I can figure it out was already like planted. The seed was planted. There wasn't anything that we couldn't figure out. So
yeah, like I'm going to do it no matter what you guys say. So you might as well just get out of my way.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally just managed millions of dollars and sent things into space. You think I can't handle this? Like, come on.
I wish I had as much confidence as you sound like I had, but it was still more of that foundation gave me the confidence that I needed to do the things that I did beyond that. And then the exposure to all kinds of different small businesses being more in the support side gave me a lot of visibility into businesses like the New Black's finances. And then so you learn really fast.
Yeah, once you can see behind like the closed doors.
Yeah, and people need to let people see behind the curtain.
They do.
Like I'm very open about like my salary or our budget or how we've figured out things. And I talk often with people about this, not because I think I have it figured out, but like I genuinely want to know what they do in case they know something I don't.
I mean, what if they're like, oh, dude, you could be making more? You know what I mean?
Well, I have some friends that are like really good budgeters. And so like I know that it is possible for us to have saved and done more if we had more discipline. Like I got a girlfriend who just paid off $200,000 in student loans in 5 years.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what kind of discipline does that take?
Yeah.
And it's like, I know that we've tracked around the same and we have not saved that. It's like we just squandered our privilege of not having this debt. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like we didn't have debt. We should have been saving like that, but we weren't.
Just, living it up.
Yeah.
Living it up a little earlier than the rest of us. I just started living it up and it's still, it's like barely.
I love that your definition of living it up is like buying a house and settling down.
It is. I just bought a house. I just viewed everyone around me as taking steps ahead of me. So maybe that was what I mean about it. But I mean, we got married young as well. Like we were 24, and maybe like a year out of college or something like that. It worked out for us, but we rented for a long time and I was never stable with my income and a majority of the time didn't bring home income. And that was definitely a struggle for me. And like, I had a lot of guilt around that. And I wasn't like caring for myself because like physically and mentally too. But like, I was just like, no, I can't go to the doctor because it's my husband's insurance, even though I was on it. Like that kind of stuff messed with me because I wanted to be this entrepreneur and girl boss and all these things. But it was like my mental reality and not my physical reality. If that makes sense.
Well, and I think that I've gotten to watch you for the past several years, getting to know you through that and then becoming friends. And I feel like those were mental barriers that you have really tackled over the last couple of years. And they're mental barriers that we all have to tackle in our own ways. That thought of like other people getting places faster or further than us. It's like, no matter what, there is someone doing better than you and someone doing worse than you. And so it's like, they're just not good markers.
Yeah.
But they're the whole like getting over like not using your husband's insurance.
Yeah.
Like,
that was a weird one.
But you've come like a really long way in like learning that balance. And I think it's been really nice to see how you've really stepped into your empowerment over like the last 2 years. With the podcast. Cute. I mean, it's been a goal of yours for a while and here we are.
Since we met, I've been trying to do it.
It's just amazing.
And then I was just like, oh, I can just do it.
If there's one thing, like when you're talking about all the things with like the finance stuff and having it together, like one thing that I admire about you that I am not as like risky, and you just do things. You just make sure that they get done. You're like, you know what? I'm going to figure out this fashion show stuff and go live in California for a couple of weeks. Like, and you just do it. And then it's like, I'm going to start a new business. And I remember when you told me about WOW,
you were like,
I was like, I'm not sure about this. This seems really like maybe, and now it's probably going to be like the most successful thing in the world. So I'm really glad that you didn't listen to me in that one. Like, and what's funny is I'm not super risk averse. Like most people think most of the normal people out there think I'm insane, like my parents and family. And, you know,
but you hang around with entrepreneurs all day.
I hang around with super entrepreneurs. And so
who will like risk everything.
Yeah. I was like, we just got you out of debt with the new black.
You did. You're like, wait, what? I don't think it's a good idea to rent
wrong.
A space in April 2020. Listen, that probably was... Nobody thought it was going to last 2 years, you know? But it was, for me, like, that's very sweet. And thank you. Like, I definitely can take risks. And I think people don't realize how I don't write things down. So I don't seem like a planner. Like, I just don't come across as this person who's really scheduled and planned. That's just not how my brain operates. We have a friend who has like a Google Calendar app. And she was on the podcast, Jess.
She's way more organized than both of us.
Oh, God. She's so much more organized. And we were talking about it the other day, and she was like, we have to schedule the next time we hang out when we hang out, because then we really will do it. And like when you're an adult, you got to schedule things. And I'm just like, everybody's writing it in their calendars or like on their phone. And I have a phone right in front of me and I carry it with me everywhere I go. And I don't write a single thing in it.
I don't know how you function that way. Cause
I was like, I'm just going to remember it's the 10th.
No, I can't do that. I will miss it if it is not in the calendar. I'm not as organized as Jess because she is really on top of it. She's like, I have these 3 things to do. And she does those 3 things. And I want that so bad. And that's like one of my goals this year is to like, when I write down the 3 things that I actually do those 3 things.
You're going to do it.
Yeah.
Do it, Ellie. You got this.
But one thing you made a point a second ago. Yeah. One point that you made a second ago, though, or me talking about you taking that opportunity on the space. WOW's physical location came available before WOW was even really fully an idea.
Yeah.
And she just made fell in love with this space. And like my apprehension was like, what are you going to do with the rent space? Like we're talking about whether or not you can, cover the rent that you have.
Can I cover the rent I have during the like very beginning of COVID?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to rent another one. Of course it sounds crazy.
And so like, I remember a conversation that was maybe more contentious conversation in our marriage, talking about the place of privilege or like the luck, the quote unquote luck that I've had with these opportunities with Space Tango or at the cabinet or whatever. And this conversation was like, I don't have more quote unquote luck. I say yes to opportunities. And Brad would totally agree with that now and like has seen that play out in his own life.
I like that.
But you say yes to opportunities. And so it's like, I don't mean to discount the privilege that is absolutely there, but also the difference in like people doing things and not doing things is the opportunities that you choose to say yes to. And so like, I've watched you say yes to like taking on this space and it's transformed into this business that will probably be the business that actually sustains you for the rest of your life, the one that can grow and scale.
That I learned from you.
And I just think it's like the coolest thing in the world. WOW is a far more sustainable because you're not actually sewing the clothes by yourself.
I know, girl. I know. The older I got, the more I was like, I have to do something else. And I realized that my marketing skills and my connection, my vulnerability are my gems, like they're really what connect people to me.
And you're really great at building these brands around those items. And so WOW has grown into this thing that is as big as the New Black. Like
bigger.
And like that. And now it's already bigger. And
yeah, we made what I made in my 4th year, in my 2nd year.
Yeah. And so it's just like taking off. And I think it'll really scale.
Agreed. Do you know that I'm opening a 2nd one in Cincinnati?
I knew it was a goal, but I didn't know that that's what you were doing.
I'm literally, okay, so we were
saying yes to opportunities. I didn't even know that was what you were going to tell me.
Well, I've been like scouting. It's like the point I was trying to make that I think people don't, when they see, me or whatever, when they interact with me, it's not that I don't carry myself well or that I don't sound put together or something like that. I do most of the time. I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you're like, no, girl, what are you talking about? But these decisions, when I finally decide to share with anyone, to be honest, like even with my husband, who is more risk averse, and I do run stuff by him to gauge, is my meter, running off course or something for like risks. And I brought it to him and I was like, okay, so I've been thinking about this thing, and it seemed like I've been thinking about it for like a week. Because I had just learned about the space. I viewed it. I brought my employee, Adrienne, there, and she liked it as well. And like, it was this gray box with like checkerboard floors. And now it's this beautifully like pink room when we laid new floors and all this stuff. But I can't always communicate my vision. And I don't always share my process of decision making with the world. And when I do finally reach the point of, I'm going to do this, I have been thinking about it for a lot longer than I seem. And so it comes out really quick. Like, you're like, oh, she's going to do this, whatever. And you're right. My stubbornness will get me very far in life.
Persistence.
My persistence. Thank you. My persistence will get me very far in life. This endurance, I got it. But it's like, it sits in my brain a lot longer than I let on. And so when I do bring it out, it seems like this quick thing and that I'm moving on it quick, but I've really been thinking about it for like 6 months or a year or whatever. I mean, I realized like in the accelerator program that I was in for business, like I was actually pitching WOW. And I was trying to make it that I was pitching the New Black. And then I realized that I was trying to connect makers to customers that like cared about it and, present it in this way of like having this female community or femme, identifying community. And like, oh, there it is. You know what I mean? So it's like, I actually went through a lot of that, but it never seems like it. And I think that's where people get me wrong, is that they don't consider me planned because I don't write stuff down. I mean, I literally can't. But I'm like now applying for a real estate development group up in Cincinnati, and I have to give them a business plan. I don't have one. So I was like, great, just give me like, a couple days. And I was like, I'm going to put some stuff together. It'll be great. And I have like 4 or 5 pages now, and I'm like super excited.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote it down, Ellie. I wrote it down.
I can't wait to read it. You've got to let me.
Oh God, please read it because it's not ready for someone else to view yet.
But I mean, you probably have some stuff because we've applied for some grants and some loans and things.
Maybe.
The whole taking charge of the opportunity, and like you had the vision for multiple stores and you had the vision for scalability. And one thing that I'd been really pushing on for the New Black, and what I didn't realize it wasn't the New Black, it was going to be WOW, was moving to more e-commerce.
Yeah, definitely.
And WOW has operated in the pandemic, outgrowing New Black because of its e-commerce
opportunity.
Yeah. And the physical stores are like absolutely draw in points and like places for people to connect, and they are necessary to the overall strategy and brand and the business model. But you will grow and scale because you have this e-commerce base, where the New Black was really an in-store
experience. Yeah.
Experience. And you had grown it via in-store, and most of your customers still shopped in-store, and you still did lots of custom things for freakishly tall people like me.
You never turn away a fit. I could figure it out. No, but you're right. Like I built that business based on the in-person experience that they had with me. And that is not the scalable option. And even like over the past, actually, the New Black had a viral video. Oh, it stressed me out because we had like 300 followers on TikTok and now we have over 22,000. And I never got that much on Instagram in 7 years. Like I have like 11,000 or something. And I have so much of my business on Instagram. And so I was like, okay, well, we need to be shifting and like taking these opportunities like we're talking about and like really be changing the way we're representing. Like it's almost like learning from WOW helped me do that for the new Black too, because now we don't have a physical storefront and we are almost all online.
I think that it gave you the confidence you needed to move out of store.
Yeah, definitely.
Because store was like what you knew.
Like opening a store doesn't scare me in the slightest.
Yeah. And you knew that world and now you have the confidence that you need to build an e-commerce brand.
Yeah, I've always been like more scared of online.
And I think it's important to say right here because we talk about scalable and small business versus like startup or whatever. And there's always like this, what category do I live in, or tension between Main Street owners and like tech companies. Like the line is getting blurred more and more every day. And so I do believe that Main Street owners need to learn the technology like e-commerce world to help you stay alive. But it should be noted that like if you want to start a lifestyle business and all your goal is for it to maintain your lifestyle, that is totally fine. You are still an entrepreneur. You are still a total badass. Like that is essentially what mine and my husband's businesses have been for the past several years, is they're about not necessarily scaling.
Absolutely.
But sustaining our like income in our household and like paying for the swim lessons that my kid's at right now. And like, those kinds of very normal things. And that is okay.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're saying that because I feel like there was so much pressure, especially within the new Black, that probably would have just been a great business to sustain me to scale and to, always be doubling my numbers and all this stuff that it just wasn't necessary for what I was trying to do within that business versus within WOW that has more scalability opportunity. Like it's an interesting like juxtaposition.
I think most businesses are scalable and it's just really about vision. But I think that sometimes we, because of Instagram or whatever, feel like we're failing if our vision for success isn't like massive. It's just like a reminder that it's like whatever you want it to be. Like if you want to grow and scale, like Amanda's vision has always been massive. And you could tell that she wanted these massive things with multiple stores, which is why I pushed on her to move e-com. But like, if that's not your vision and you just want to sustain your lifestyle, that is okay. And you're still an entrepreneur.
I feel like a lot of times, like we're talking about, like there's all these outside pressures and everything to scale and to grow, but having your business operate for your lifestyle is just as important. And that's what I was not doing. I was in a retail space in the mall, open 363 days a year, working 13, 14, 15-hour days, sewing overnight most of the time, like to be able to keep up with orders. Like it didn't ever give me the lifestyle that I thought as an entrepreneur I would have.
Right.
Everybody has this idea.
Flexibility.
Yeah. They think that, freedom of time, like you can go do stuff, which I feel like a lot of people, that's why there's so much, people love working from home because they do receive some of that freedom and flexibility. Freedom isn't the right word. Flexibility is the right word.
But you still had a physical location.
And I couldn't have that flexibility with that space because of the rigid guidelines of being in a mall. And, I couldn't set my hours like I can now. Like I had to make a lot of shifts, like to allow my business basically to work for me and not me for my business is what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And there was also a period of letting go and bringing on Adrian and bringing on trusted people that you could walk away for weeks at a time and know that the store were going to still function. And so like finding those right people that you trust is a very hard
it's so
process. And
so hard.
Yeah. And so like there's growing pains for all of us as we go through those things. And that point, like, so we have a video production company, which basically means my husband is a video freelancer and he is a camera operator. And so he's mostly charged up by day rates and he goes and he operates the camera, whether that be for a Netflix film or TV show or for your KFC commercial. Like, something that's educational internally for corporations. And so it's a wide variety of things, but his role is pretty much like people hire him for a day rate or for multiple days. And so his business up till this point has been limited on his time. And so that's okay because that's what he wants to do. He wants to do that work in those days. But now as we are, welcome a second child to our family, we want to grow and have more sustainable. We want it to be more than what he can charge for an hour, for a day. So we took some risks and we bought some camera gear. And when we did that, not only can he bring on his own clients rather than being rented out as a day laborer, basically, but he can also rent the gear. And so while we were in Hawaii, his gear was filming a Hallmark movie and made money just as much almost as he would have made if he actually worked that day.
I forgot about like that additional thing because I was like, oh, he can hire more people and they can, I was thinking that direction. But I love the direction of like renting out the gear doesn't have any payroll taxes. You know what I mean?
I think we still need to have to, like some point you have to pay sales tax. We're figuring that kind of stuff out now. But to your point, like you feel like we, this perception of always having it together is like totally not true. Like I had a mental breakdown doing our taxes yesterday and like Googling whether or not we had to pay sales tax on the rentals. And like, so there's like always figuring it out. But what it is about is once you figured that one thing out, making sure that you tell the next person behind you.
That's a great way to say it though, because I feel like maybe it's not I don't love to say like, oh, figured it all out or you have your shit together or whatever, like in a way that's like adding pressure. But I love how you just said it, like, if I learn something, I'm going to pass it along to another person so that they've learned it too. Like that's what we're doing right now. Yes. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's how you come across in a way that is helpful, is informed. I feel like you hold the information and you utilize the opportunities to share that information in a way that benefits everyone.
Well, thanks.
And that's beautiful. Those are your opportunities right there that you take on.
Yeah. And
how many more compliments can we just give
each other
to one another?
We love each other.
We do.
Yeah. But it's because we've watched each other grow a lot through our small businesses. And we're like definitely nowhere near like made it. Both of us believe the other one is going to make it.
Absolutely. And it's so important to have somebody in your corner like that. Like having, Ellie's help, just even having her support behind me not knowing something around filling out my SBA loan or filling out my pandemic, I guess SBA loan as well. But filling out those papers for some reason was such a mental block for me because it was just so scary because I was so close. And I think when you can offer, that helping hand to someone else in a way that relieves so much stress from them, but doesn't take that much from you, like do it. Why would you hold back? Why would you not share that with your loved ones, with your community, with anybody who is needing that? I think that's really important because those were pivotal moments in my life. And Ellie's like, yeah, I did it a bunch of times. And I'm like, I'm now thinking about all of the other people that are like, wow, Ellie really helped me with that. Or she like really supported me in that moment that I really needed it. And I feel like that she took that opportunity to share really important information with me that I didn't know. And she did it in a kind and helpful way that made a massive difference in my life. And why wouldn't we not all want to be like Ellie?
You're so sweet. But I feel the same way with you. So like you had a social media person join your team this year and you have really taught her so much and she's grown as a human being. And I shared with her, like, this is how I manage my money. So like, I think it's just people showed us, like whether it was me showing you or the person when I was 21 telling me about like, the slumps fund, like they shared that information with us. And so I just feel like it's our duty to share it with the next set. And so like my husband, Brett, has a young man who came and lived with us for a little while because he wanted to get out of Moorhead and into the big city of Louisville, Kentucky.
Massive city.
I know.
But change his environment. And
and we just like shared that same kind of, here's the basics of like, do you have a business checking and a savings? And you need to put back at least 25% of every paycheck so that you can pay your taxes so you don't do what I did. And then
even just the simple thing of like having that separate business account, I've shared that information And I'm always surprised when someone hadn't heard that before.
Yeah. So like for when I had Ellie Puckett LLC that did consulting and coaching, and Brad had Finger Frame Media, we both had separate business checking accounts, and we each contributed a, quote unquote salary to our personal checking. And then we did our life budgeting out of personal checking. Mm-hmm. And that was like, so our taxes were set aside in our business savings account. And it was just that function of like that one line makes it, even if it's just you, like it just cleans it up and it makes your taxes at the end of the year so much easier.
Yes.
And you have like the credit card transaction report, and you're not like going through and being like, was that Target for business, or was that Target that time I got a bathing suit, or was that,
That's something my CPA has really helped me do this year. Like I was following the Profit First method, and I've talked about that book a couple times on here, and I definitely love it. And there's a lot of like principles from it that I love, but you have to make anybody's method work for you. And I had just one, just a couple too many accounts. Basically, I got really comfortable with it. And now I've like simplified that, not done any personal stuff on, my business things. Like I fully separately pay myself now, and it's a weekly paycheck, and I spend that money on myself, and it's great. But it is, I like how you said like it's a clean line. It moves from one place to another place, and then your business is your business and your personal is your personal. And that's just so
it goes a long way to feeling like it's a business and formalizing it as a business.
It changes that mindset around how you spend the money within the business and how you spend your money personally. Like once you fully separate them, that mindset shift really does make you feel like, oh, I do have it all together.
Yeah.
At least in this moment and for this thing. Yes.
Yes.
So I think that's great. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on. And I want to thank you for paying it forward always and letting you know that those moments of your life that maybe seemed insignificant were really important in mine. And in the development of my business, my companies, I was going to tell you, the actual thing I was going to tell you is that I filled out my PPP paperwork for getting it waived, and it was approved, and I filled it out all by myself.
Congratulations. That's so exciting. I have goosebumps, guys. This is what it's about. Cheering for your girlfriends.
I was like, okay, that $5,000 is now waived. I was just so proud of myself and so excited. And even the extension that I got last year, I filled that out by myself, and I wasn't as scared to handle it because I had you by my side in the beginning and like really entering that world. So just thank you. And I think we should all take a page from Ellie and just pay it forward. I love that that's kind of how this came about. But Ellie, how can they follow you? Do you want them to follow you?
Sure.
I mean, you want to plug some businesses?
Yeah, my social media is pretty much just Instagram, and it's renegade_Ellie. I am now a strategic partnerships director at Untitled, and we do modern data architecture, and we work with a lot of e-commerce companies. So if you are scaling your e-commerce company and looking to centralize your data and get more insights from your Shopify or any of the other programs and platforms that you use, if you want to integrate your QuickBooks and your Shopify and your Salesforce or any of your tools, please reach out.
Oh, I need that. I didn't know I needed that, but now I do. Well, thanks again, Ellie. We love you, and we appreciate everything that you, all of the opportunities and all of the sharing that you've done. So thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
If you want to put more money into the wallets of women like we do, then check out our website, thewomanownedwallet.com. And we can't wait to continue the conversation on our social media. So definitely follow us on our Instagram @womanowned.wallet and on TikTok @womanownedwallet. You can support us by following our podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. And don't forget to leave us a review. Thank you for listening to Woman Owned Wallet, the podcast.